Hey, how's it going? Um, but I just wanted to try to put it, there's a question, but try to put into words what I was feeling in a meditation, and that sometimes I feel it's as if it has to do with solidity, no? It's as if there is a current um that's very intense to hold, and it's as if it wants to explode open this shell that seems solid. Um, and the body actually has spasms, and um, the sensation is it only seems like a separate current. I think it only seems like a separate current because because of how I look at maybe it's as if the gaze was too focused on thoughts, and that's what makes them solid, or makes the sensation of a shell that's solid. So, but the intuition of that is so free and so ethereal and non-solid, and so I guess my question is, is yours is your sense of being like that total non-solidity, like um
We have to be careful with words, and it's really difficult to describe. So the description in words will be inaccurate. So the short answer is yes. And a little longer answer is yes, but it's not that different to how it was. What changes is the interpretation. It's that without that mental overlay of what you're describing as solidity, what is solid, so the experience of sensation is exactly the same. But without that interpretation, it's completely, purely an energetic experience in a sense. Like when I used to do this, it was real solid matter fingers, and now it's just purely made of sensation, and it's empty, and that's where I would have to be a poet to describe it well.
mm,
And so don't expect, and what I was hearing in your sharing is a little bit also of this sense of you're imagining something you're trying to get to. That's going to give you a kind of release. And there's a subtle pushing, striving with the current experience. There's a subtle kind of manipulating. The tricky thing, and it's paradoxical, is that there is such a thing. So there's a kind of teaching that says, like, you're already there, right? And that's a valid pointer, but it's valid only if it's half. Because there is a shift that is a real shift, that is a realization of reality. And so the pointers that are some teachings, are specifically teachers who only point to there is only this, and really emphatic on nothing other than this. That can be a very powerful thing if you've been very involved in the opposite kind of teaching. But it's also problematic in that it starts to deny the potential of an actual shift, which is real and can happen. And so I'm with you right now, I'm kind of walking that line because I don't want you to, and within yourself, deny that possibility. But also I can sense that you're kind of pushing for this release of this shell and this energy that's pushing, because that's true.
What
It's
is true?
it's true that there is such a possibility. The trick is that notice how you might be imagining what it's like. And then there's going to be a narrative, and that's creating time, and it's creating a reality of a way to sense yourself in this body and this moment different to what it is now, and you're overlaying that, and then you're manipulating your current experience.
Yeah.
So you're nodding.
The same. Yeah. No, but right. Yeah, I can see there is imagination around that. But there's also that real sensation of something wants to explode and is
It's real, yes.
breaking a shell or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That I don't want to in any way communicate anything that invalidates in you that is real. So I want to say, yes, that is real, but look carefully at the sense and the imagining of what it's like, what it should be like, and how it should happen. And it's going to be probably based on past experiences where there were shifts and senses of expansion, and that becomes a memory, and you're trying to reproduce that, and that's all thought.
Yeah.
And that can become this addictive attempting to change states. So to change what you're actually experiencing, to change into something that is an imagination of a memory of how it felt when it was better, when it was more released, or how you imagine it was for others who had a more profound release. That's all imagination.
Hmm.
And so one of the ways to consider it is consider that what you are, exactly how you are experiencing everything right now, that does not need to change. That what you're looking for does not require a change of state, or a change in your sensations, or a change in perception in the body. But there is such a shift possible. So that keeps you kind of right in the middle, because it's also
But,
not letting you.
I understand I think what you say, but it's also weird because it feels like a change in stop feeling trapped in the shell. Like that will change.
Give me a second. I think they're bringing us something.
Disculpe, ¿qué tiene garrafones vacío? Sí.
Sí, gracias.
Ahorita te traigo otro bote.
Gracias.
Sí. Gracias. Sí. ¿Más uno tiene?
Solo uno.
Dos más.
Ah, no, uno más, sí.
Bueno, ahí está bien. Sí, gracias.
They're bringing us what tanks of drinking water. Oh yeah. So you were talking about, can you repeat the last thing you were saying, Julian, about the change? You said it's strange.
No, yeah. Did you say it's exactly nothing needs to change it. It's exactly as it is like now, but it feels that the change involves at least stop feeling like you're trapped in a shell.
Not the feeling. The feeling doesn't have to change either.
Okay. So
it's even more subtle. I'm trying to not tell you because then it's just the intellectual understanding. What else can change?
stop thinking you are the shell. Stop believing you are the shell. Or that
Contemplate the
the feeling of what you are not being constrained.
it's more subtle.
Okay.
It's more subtle, and it's. Do you have that experience right now?
Of what?
The shell.
Yeah. Not as much as a while ago, but yeah.
So describe it.
Mm. Well, it feels like a solidity in the body, and that I'm inside my body, but not outside, and that
Okay, so I'll point out one thing to start. Notice that in order to describe this experience, your eyesight is constantly up.
Mm.
And I don't know for sure, but I can bet you that you're activating thought. Versus if I ask you to get in touch with your breath and describe it, your gaze will likely stay the same or it'll go gently down. You're not going to go up to describe your breath. And so the contrast of that is this shell-like experience. If I spell it out, it's an interpretation. And by that I mean it's a thought process. And so thought, as I said, has 4 kind of qualities or 4 kind of flavors. One is sound, and think of it as a mirror, like the Mirage. So we hear sounds, our mind understands sounds and then can imagine sounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can think of the sound of the exhaust of a car as it accelerates.
Yeah.
It's clearly an imagined sound based on memory. Now, we start talking, and then we hear our own voice, we hear others' voices, and so we learn to imagine inner dialogue, usually in the form of sound, imagined sounds. So, same with images. We see things, then we can imagine based on what we see. So it's the same thing, but reflected in imagination. The other aspect has to do with sensations. We have feelings, sensations, and then we can imagine sensations. We can imagine what I would say emotions are a mental activity. And the mind isn't an abstract thing. There's a brain, there's chemistry,
Oh, okay.
right?
So you're saying that shell is imagined,
Exactly.
is a thought.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And now,
Something clicked.
yeah. Okay. Tell me.
No, it's just like, oh, that is thought as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to stop. All you see is that it's not water. In your case, you're seeing water and you want it to stop being water. It's not water in the first place. It's a reflection of the sky. It's a mirage in the metaphor of the...
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's the interpretation that makes something solid, that makes... There's a sensation, right? There's sensations. And then there's the mental reflection. So when we imagine the future, we create the future based on memory. And we create time in our mental world. And we can go really far away. We could think about life when we're old, blah, blah. We can think about life on the other side of the planet, on another planet, far away. But also, mind, our mind is constantly mapping reality and it's overlaying that imagination. But it's an imagination. And it's useful because we're imagining we have to constantly create in our inner world the reality we're living in, so we navigate it. What happens is that it stops being the mental interpretation. It becomes believed as reality. And then it's not actually very close to reality. And so I'm being a little convoluted, but back to your sensation. You have a sensation. Your body is constantly producing sensations. You experience them. And then you think you are relating directly to the sensation and knowing the sensation directly, but you're imagining, so you're interpreting that sensation. The way you're mapping the experience of your body is projecting onto it a shell-like sensation, a shell-like imagined experience. And then that becomes believed to be your experience, true, direct, raw experience of your body. But whenever you had to describe it, you had to go into the world of thought and kind of recreate it. Remember what the imagination was like and recreate it and put it again onto your body.
So you're saying that what seems, by really, you're saying that what seems solid is every time I feel solidity, it's the feeling, a thought, the feeling part of thought. I mean the imagination of or I'm not being clear with my words. What you
Okay, you're talking about what is solid. So what do you mean by solid?
Well, it's a sensation, kind of a inner sensation. But what I think I'm realizing, or that you're trying to say, is that sensation is always thought.
There is a sensation, or there are a flow of sensations, and then there is an interpretation that is thought-based that is creating this solid-like sense of a shell.
Yeah.
And so the way out isn't a manipulation of the sensations. It's seeing the thought-like part of it purely as thought.
Yeah.
And that's going to shift the experience of it from real to imaginary. Or interpretation.
I think
it cut off. It's if you notice, there's going to be a mix of bodily sensations and imaginary sensations. And you need to sit with that and really clearly notice what's actually coming through the senses of touch and what is the interpretational side of that, what is the imaginary mental side of that. And then you can discern and see, oh, that's thinking, oh, that's sensation, that's thinking. It's going to be all mixed. And as you recognize and see what they are, the thought-like part of it, the aspect of that experience that's thought-based, made of thought, which in the belief of it to be your body, it is interpreted as real in the sense of that is my body, direct experience of the body. You will see, oh, It's not real in the sense of the direct experience in the body. It's real as thought, purely as thought.
Yeah. I get it. I think I'm kind of amazed. I hadn't realized how thought can be so
Tricky.
difficult to distinguish from real sensation. Yeah.
It goes, the rabbit hole goes way deeper than that. And that's the kind of thing that when I point to that and I say a lot of what you're experiencing is actually thought and you think it's real, I mean a lot, like 90 something percent, in the sense of what we think is real and it's actually thought.
Yeah.
A lot. And that's what liberation, realization is, this the full total seeing of that fully, and you can no longer totally convince yourself it's other than thought. But then there's a process of, which is up to liberation, which is when actually in the constant daily experience, you're no longer relating to it, trying to make it real. And then before the total realization, there could be partial realization, which is what you're describing, is when we see parts of it, parts of it, parts of it. Oh, this part is thought. That part is thought. And so that's the more kind of progressive approach to you can call it waking up.
Yeah.
And so what you can do now with that glimpse is sit with it and, in a sense, integrate it so that it becomes obvious to you. And this is a practice where you can sit with those sensations, look at what is this experience of the shell, and keep looking and discerning it as like, that's thought, that's sensation, that's thought, that's sensation.
Yeah.
And so the experience of the shell doesn't have to stop or go away. It just becomes more and more and more a very thin part of your experience. Whereas at first it's like right there, like really real and very full on foreground.
Great, thanks.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.